Welcome back to the Explorer's Guide to Western Australia, episode number 5. In last episode, we went south from Perth, into the wine country of Margaret River. From there, we made our way to Albany, and from there, onto the stunning coastline at Esperance. In this episode, we'll head north from Esperance to Kalgoorlie and the Goldfields, before turning west and heading through the wheatbelt. It's quite a long drive from Esperance to Kalgoorlie, about 400 kilometres, with not a great deal along the way to break up the trip. Once you get out into these areas, you're really starting to experience the outback, with its huge skies and vast distances. The main stop-off along the way will be the town of Norseman. Here, the air highway leads east towards South Australia, but we're going to continue north to Kalgoorlie. Norseman is a handy stopping point to refuel and pick up supplies, and it's roughly halfway to Kalgoorlie. Kalgoorlie is a fascinating town, full of interesting historic buildings and tales of gold strikes, robberies, murder and hard times. There's a lot to see and do here, including a visit to the Museum of the Goldfields. The museum is really easy to find. Just look for the big red puppet head up at one end of Hannon Street. This is a great place to find out about the history of the area, and a wander down into the vault will reveal some of the treasures of the area. One place almost all visitors to Kalgoorlie go to is the Super Pit Lookout. From there, you can see the huge hole in the ground that's been created in the search for gold. Known as the Golden Mile, the pit once housed a number of separate mines, but the different leases were all amalgamated to form one huge mine that we see today. As the area is centred around mining, it isn't much of a surprise that many of the tourist attractions in town are also connected with that activity. Hannon's North Tourist Mine is an old mine site that has a number of different exhibits and activities that you can take part in. You will hear the name Hannon a lot in Kalgoorlie, as he was the man credited with finding the first gold and creating one of the world's largest gold rushes. At the tourist mine, you can have a go at gold panning, play the famous outback game of 2-up, see a miner's campsite to find out what conditions were like in the early days, and explore different mining buildings and mining equipment scattered across the site. Sadly, the underground tours that the mine used to offer are no longer available. One feature that has great historical significance is the Mount Charlotte Reservoir. When the pipeline from Mundaring to Kalgoorlie was completed in 1903, the water had to be stored somewhere so that it could then be distributed around the town. A huge storage tank was constructed up on Mount Charlotte so that the flow of water could be gravity assisted. This one is more for the history buffs, as the reservoir itself is covered to slow down evaporation, but there is a really good view from up on the hill. From Kalgoorlie, we keep on heading north. Our destination is the old ghost town of Gwalia. Along the way, we pass through the town of Menzies, and this is a good spot to stop, have a wander around, and perhaps grab a bite to eat and have a drink. Another 100 kilometres will bring you to the town of Leonora, and just 3 kilometres further on, you'll find yourself in Gwalia. Gwalia is a restored mining town, showing how the miners lived in their tin dwellings. The old buildings here are fascinating, and you're free to wander around and see inside all the old miners' shacks. There's a lovely old hotel here too, but sadly it's abandoned, locked up, and being left to deteriorate. We really think it should be fully restored and turned into tourist accommodation. Up on the hill is the old mine manager's house, known as Hoover House, This is named after Herbert Hoover, later President Hoover, who originally designed the building. The restored building shows what could be done with the old State Hotel, with enough work and imagination. You can stay overnight at Hoover House, and this is something we can absolutely recommend. There's also a museum to walk through, and other mine buildings such as the mine office and the assay building. We found Gwalia to be one of the most worthwhile places we've ever visited, and if you're in the area, we recommend that you don't miss it. At this point, you have a couple of choices in your direction of travel. You can keep on heading north to Leinster and maybe even Wiluna before heading back west to the Great Northern Highway. Or you can head back a bit towards Kalgoorlie and then take the road from Broad Arrow to Orabanda before turning south, passing through the abandoned town of Cunninelling before reaching the historic town of Coolgardie. This is all on unsealed roads, but they're generally in good condition. Of course, if you want to stay on the sealed road, you have to go all the way back to Kalgoorlie before turning west to Coolgardie. Coolgardie was once a boom town, but it was outstripped by Kalgoorlie. Today, it's a quiet backwater, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have a lot to offer. The magnificent court building speaks of a past that was full of confidence, but the future had other plans for this town. Today, the courthouse is a wonderful museum, and is one of the best museums you will encounter on your travels in WA. Across the main road and up a hill, and you'll find the old historic building that is Warden Finnity's house. Warden Finity was a legend on the Goldfields. As a mining warden, he was both feared and respected by the miners. His former home is also now a museum, and it's certainly worth a visit while you're in town. Check and see if you can still get scones and coffee here. It's a lovely experience to sit on the veranda, enjoying a drink and a bite to eat. From Coolgardie, we are continuing west along the Great Eastern Highway. Gradually, the landscape changes from wild and natural bushland to more settled areas of farmland. From Southern Cross onward, you're leaving the Goldfields and entering the huge expanse of Western Australia's wheatbelt.